the biggest other thing for me would just be like really having, this would be my parting thought for you, is managing your energy, understanding when you are burnt out. When you week after week are trying to grow something, you're trying to do the initiative, you're trying to do the market research for the thing that will take you like 40 minutes with ChatGPT once you're done with it, maybe, but it takes you 3 weeks to do it. That's probably a sign that you're in some, like, that there might be a burnout phase. There might be something outside of your normal flow, right? And to not fight that, to sit with that, ask yourself the question of what's going on here.
All right, so here's something I've been thinking about. When you're starting a business, there's no confusion about your purpose. It's to make money, create stability, and take care of your family. But then one day you kind of get there. You've created that stability, you've created that foundation, and suddenly the thing that was pushing you forward, it disappears. And that's what we're figuring out here on the other side of enough. I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs who have hit their goals, but they're still searching for something more. We're talking about what business excellence really looks like on the other side. Let's get into it. We are here with Clint Turner. I wish he was from Flint, Michigan, so we could say Clint from Flint, be like a good rapper intro. Clint, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the audience who you are. I think we make the assumption, at least I make the assumption, that everyone knows you because within our niche, in our little corner of the market, you're very well known. You're a household name. But hopefully over half of my listeners are not in the land space. They're just more in the entrepreneurial space. So talk to who you are, your background. I want to hear from like your iPhone flipping at age 14 all the way up to now. And then we'll get into some questions.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Drew. Yeah, I met Drew. Drew, when did we meet?
In person, it would have been October 2022.
Okay, good memory. My event?
That was at your event.
Okay.
I'm like the Rain Man. I like remember dates really well.
Nice.
Maybe on the spectrum.
Great.
No idea.
I'm definitely on the spectrum, I'm pretty sure. But no, thanks. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I met Drew, I guess almost 3 years ago now. Probably knew each other a little bit before that from the internet, but yeah, I normally start my backstory kind of at the end of college, so I guess I'll work backwards a little bit. I've always been very entrepreneurial, always enjoyed just being a deal junkie. I think that's what a lot of people know me for. Yeah, I started in, like, one of my best friends, his name's Carlos. The way we met was I bought an iPhone off him in like fourth period one day in seventh grade.
In high school?
This was like
seventh?
School. This was
okay.
Middle school, yeah. So I bought, and he's entrepreneurial as well. And he bought this phone off somebody else. And this was back in the day when you like upgraded your phone for like free or $40 or whatever it was. And nobody really understood that the phone still had value. So people would sell them for $20. So he bought this phone for $20 and he sold it to me for $100 like 2 periods later. And he thought he like got one over on me. So I took it home. I fixed the screen because it was broken. And I listed on Craigslist and I sold it that weekend for $350 or $400.
Nice.
And we came back to class the next Monday and he was like joking with me, like giving me a hard time. Oh, what'd you do with that phone? Like, I got a pretty good deal off. He was like, oh, I sold her for $400 this weekend. And after that, he's like, all right, hold on. I gotta know who this guy is. So I've always been doing stuff like that, selling stuff in the school cafeteria. I did a lot of phone flipping, phone fixing. I'd modify Xbox controllers in middle school and high school. I'd take them apart and I'd put fancy lights in them and extra buttons on them. So all the kids playing video games had little cheat codes they could use. So I've always been doing stuff like that. Ended up going to flight school right out of high school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Went there for a year and the whole program I went for just disappeared overnight. Like they closed down that school. And I was going for a certain certificate that was backed by the FAA, and the FAA dropped that certificate. They were no longer issuing it. So my whole first year of college was, in retrospect, was not all for nothing. But at the time, it was like, man, that was all for nothing. Spent the rest of that year, really, I just was flying airplanes, and I was working at the airport in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that was one of my favorite years. That was a great time.
Yeah.
But after that, I transferred to Oklahoma State, which was about an hour away, finished my engineering degree. Miracle, somehow I got it done in the next 3 years and I graduated on time. And I went to work for you probably have never heard of them, but they're well known in the technology space, company called National Instruments. It was a really cool program. It was all fresh college graduates. There was like bean bags, chairs, and dirty old couches. And it was just it was a nasty, like young tech bro environment. So it was pretty cool to go there and made a bunch of friends. And I spent the first few years there. Pretty quickly knew I wasn't going to be able to just do the 9 to 5 forever, like especially, and that company ended up getting acquired. And so the cool factor really started to go away when big corporate took over and realized they didn't want to spend all that money on us. I was there for 4 or 5 years in tech sales, but really in the first year I started doing all sorts of stuff. My first venture was I was buying ATMs and I was going to bars. I wasn't even 21, but I was like going to bars around no, I was 21. I was like just fresh 21. So I was going to all these like dirty dive bars around Austin that didn't have ATM machines. And I was like pitching the owners on letting me buy a machine and put it in their place and do profit sharing. And I had, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 machines out there, and it was cool, but I was like driving around with all this money in my truck all the time, but replacing it. And the fees after you split it and buy the machines wasn't really that, it didn't seem like a long-term path to me. So I ended up selling that for break even to a large ATM operator out there. And simultaneously, I was learning about real estate. I was trying to flip houses, partnered on a couple house flips, did okay, but it wasn't really my jam. And I just stumbled into land investing and started doing deals, started sending letters, cold calling people, doing all sorts of stuff. And that's really where this whole journey began, is I flipped a deal in, I don't know, 2016 or 2017. Bought it for $1,000, sold it for $1,000 down and $250 a month. And I was like, oh, that really works.
Yeah.
I can see, and I was really interested in passive income at the time, although 10 years later, I'm like, that was not the right, not the right buzzwords to be excited about. But I started doing that and I was like, wow, this could actually turn into something. So at my day job, we had a requirement to do 4 hours of phone support for our premium, like the Oracles, the big companies of the world. And our support line was open till 7 p.m. Central. And so I would always take the 3 to 7 p.m. shift because everybody would leave that office at 4 or 4:30, and we got no calls in the evening. Yeah. So I would be at work and I'd have very little to do. So I'd just be grinding real estate. I'd be grinding.
4 hours a day or 4 hours a week?
It was, I don't know exactly how it worked out, but you had to take so many shifts a week. And then outside of that, you just did your work whenever you wanted to. But so probably 2 or 3 days a week, I had to take a shift where I was on call to help our clients for 4 hours a day. But I tried to take that evening shift as much as I could because my wife, she was fiance at the time, but she was working in graduate school. And I would literally be up there just like most of the time, like on my cell phone, trying to do land deals while I was at work. And I did a lot of deals in the first few years. A lot of them were smaller deals. I had 3 big transactions, I think, that really set me up. And they were all where I bought between 30 and 60 properties in one swoop 3 times. And that was like my foray. That was my big out the gate. And that was really cool. Set me up to do all the stuff I've done today. And that was great. And then over the last 6 or 7 years, I started Learn Land. That was just... people were having trouble selling land, and I was selling a lot of land on Facebook. And that's how Learn Land started. I started teaching people how to sell land on Facebook. I was pretty small at that time, and that was pretty cool. Real estate's a really lumpy strategy, and so being able to smooth it out with other types of income, I've learned over the years, is very helpful and lets you sleep a little bit easier at night. So I started Learn Land in 2019, and we've done various workshops and events, coaching programs over the last 5 or 6 years. And I've just worked my way from buying lots for $1,000 to, I just did a deal with you, where we bought a deal for $2 million or something like that.
I think it's 2.5.
2.5 million. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in between there, but that's the general arc. Is started small, and I really saw the model working, and I have a very obsessive personality, so when I find something I'm interested in, I get pretty obsessed, and I want to work on it pretty hard. That's how I got started, and now I'm talking to you on the other side.
I met your dad because your dad does real estate too. He's He's more of a traditional realtor, focuses on bigger stuff, commercial stuff, bigger tracts of land. I met him at your conference, October 22, and he was telling me that the way he found out about your iPhone flipping is that it was a Sunday. It was like football was on, nice calm Sunday, people are napping, and then people started ringing the doorbell and they're like, "Hey, is Clint there? I'm gonna sell him this iPhone, or I'm gonna buy this iPhone from him." And that's when he found out that you've been like flipping phones for years and nobody knew, and you were courting customers at your house, which is pretty cool.
My parents
So
were
the
divorced,
educ
and so my mom she hated when I'd have people come to the house.
Yeah.
Because I was like 13 years old, and these random people would come, some rough people as well would come
Right.
to our front door and drop their phone off, and I'd be like, all right, come back in an hour and it'll be ready. And my mom
Yeah.
hated that, so I really never told my parents that much. And my dad was super on board. I just never really told anybody. And I remember that same weekend I had a phone, and I'm a young kid, and somebody brings me a brand new phone I'm fixing, and I just am like, I'm like on the verge of like completely breaking this phone. It's a very expensive phone in those days. And as my dad and me, I just remember we're over a table, we got football on in the background, and these people are waiting in the front, and I cannot get this phone back together. And anyway, I just remember that. I do remember that weekend pretty vividly. We got it put together. We got everything done. It was good. But yeah, my dad found out, trial by fire, put him right in the middle of it.
I love it. You learn to work under pressure. And then, so you're pretty well known in the education space within the land niche. It's something I discovered a few years ago, which I think is a genius strategy. A lot of people think that coaches get a bad rap, gurus get a bad rap in this space because a lot of people think, if his strategy really works, why is he teaching it to others? And, what if he's making more from coaching than he is from his actual land business? Like people think there's something not right about that. But the good coaches, and you're one of them, and I would say Pace Morby's another, the good coaches, really it's a strategy to get more deals, right? So you teach people how to do it, especially complex deals like your messy title stuff right now and minor subdivides. Teach them how to do it, but they don't quite have the experience or the confidence to take it down themselves. So they bring it to you, and then you partner with them on it, and everyone makes money. And that's really the end strategy for you, would you say, it's a funnel for deals. And really that's encouraging because you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're teaching people how to do it, and then you do it with them, right?
Yeah. I wish I could say from the start that was the strategy. When you're a kid, and like I remember when I had the first $100,000 I made. And I also remember running my land business just really hot. And like I had $100,000 like going into a weekend basically. And by next week I was literally like, I need my work paycheck to hit in order to cover my bills, because money comes in and then you got 2 or 3 times as many deals you did before, and all the money goes out. And so out the gate, it really was not ployed to do more deals. I don't even think I was mature enough in my thinking at that point to think like that. I was really just trying to provide value so I could, because if you summarize all the little business ventures I've done over the years, they almost all are buy low and sell high, like not a complex business strategy. So I've always understood if I could buy a phone for $100 and sell for $300, I'd make some money. If I could buy land for $1,000 and sell for $5,000, I could make some money. But I didn't have really a lot of money to deploy at that time. And so I was often like running it on both ends. Like I was almost always out of money, I felt. And so I'd do little workshops, I'd post on Facebook, and there was massive demand, like a lot more than I really expected there to be. So at first it really was a strategy to just teach a couple, we can talk about this if we want, but I've only taught the full land investing model, like A to Z, off and on, really not a ton over the course of our coaching business. We've always done workshops and smaller, more niches within the niche, if you will. So we teach technology and CRMs, and we've taught advertising, and we've taught subdividing, and now we're doing a little bit more distress. So we've done a couple workshops around that. But at the time, man, it really was just like, how can I provide value to people in a way that's not slimy, in a way that I think they will leave me a review later and say, oh yeah, that was worth 10 times more. That's something Tony Robbins says, is that you should, if you pay for some sort of coaching, your client should feel like they got 10 times the value out of it. And if they can't emphatically say they got 10 times the value out of it, you probably didn't deliver the perfect result. So that was the guiding principle I had at the time. I was like, hey, if somebody pays me $2,000 to teach them how to sell land on Facebook, and I can help them sell $20,000 in land, they're probably going to think it was a good deal. And so did that for a while, and it really just helped balance out the troughs of a lot of
cash flow.
The cash conversion cycle of real estate. So that's where it started. And then as I started to acquire more capital, as I started to make more relationships with people who had capital, wanted to place it, that's really when the coaching model for me at least, pivoted to more still do workshops, we still do coaching, but at the end of the day, my goal is to do more deals. That's kind of where my specialty is, and it's what I like doing. And yeah, it was a process to get there, but these days, definitely, almost everything I do coaching wise is for deal flow, and then also just to help people in the community as well. We do a lot of free stuff. I think a lot of people have got value out of that as well.
How do you protect your mental bandwidth? Because people have asked me for coaching, and I've always said no, because number one, I don't want to feel like I'm responsible for their success. There's a lot of pressure, but also I'm afraid of having a needy client that sucks up all my emotional and mental energy. Have you run into that, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah,
and maybe I've been, because I've gone through your coaching program, maybe I've been one of those people. I have no idea.
No, absolutely not. I'd say if you see those quippets on social media of the $50 client was this going to change my life, and is this going to give me everything I've ever wanted, versus the $50,000 client is wire sent, thank you, right? That's absolutely a good representation of what you see. And I, again, would love to say that I protected my energy and protected my bandwidth, and I didn't. At first, I really took a ton of clients on, and I got very burnt out, actually. I got extremely burnt out on coaching, and really over the past couple of years, our coaching business has gone from consistently selling products, consistently selling coaching, to we might run 1 or 2 workshops a year, or we might run 1 or 2 events a year, or something in that realm. Because we did that, we took everybody on and tried, and it's a great business model. Coaching is, you have a product that costs you time and energy to put together, and you sell it for oftentimes thousands of dollars, and you have massive margins on it. And it's a great deal. When you start putting structure and team and employees around it, it's a little less exciting. And then when you open the doors to everybody, you have people come in that it's very much the bottom 10% of the clients suck up 90% of the brain bandwidth. And at a time when I was doing a lot of big deals, when the $250,000, $500,000 profit checks we were generating were coming from land, I just got so burnt out. So kind of in the 2023 range, we stopped the big coaching operation and took a little time off. And then over the past year or so, we've tried to keep the brand alive, try to keep the community alive, but do it in a way that serves everybody, I'd say.
Have you ever run ratios where you can attribute a certain percentage of your land income from coaching students that bring it to you? Let's say like your coaching business is netting $250,000 a year, land business netting $1 million a year on a spreadsheet, but let's say one takes up 50% of your time, the other one takes up 50%, let's say mental bandwidth. On a spreadsheet, that doesn't make sense. But then once you start tagging the deals that were brought through coaching, have you ever ran those numbers, and what did they look like? Obviously, it's worth it if you're still doing it.
Mm-hmm. It's a little, these days, again, if I'm partnering, because we have our own funnel of deals that I don't have JV partners, I don't have profit splits on, I just run into my business and I work on with my partner. But in 2021, I did a deal that a client passed me. I paid him like $10,000 up front, and I think I paid him another $25,000 at the resolution of the deal. But I bought that deal for $1.1 million. And I sold it for $2.5 million, and I didn't do a ton of work in between.
Yeah.
And so that's one deal. It surpassed all of my coaching profits at the time of all time, and it pretty much equaled like my net take home for the past couple of years of my small, because I was doing $25,000 deals, $50,000 smaller deals, relatively. That one relationship, that one lead that got passed over to me, it was a deal that was out of my ballpark, honestly, but took it on anyway. And that one deal took me from a 6-figure entrepreneur to a 7-figure entrepreneur. Now, I had profit splits and funding partners and stuff on that deal, but I made a lot of money on it. And it was then when I really bought into the idea of, okay, like even if it's one deal a year, if one person passes me a great deal, because when you're prospecting for real estate, it's 50% about the amount of time and energy and list you pull and salespeople you have on the phone and all that stuff. But the other half is luck. Did you catch the right person at the right time, on the right day?
Yeah.
They like the tone of your voice. So I really picked it up when the check hit, and we did such a big deal that I would not have gotten without that relationship. By the way, that relationship went on to date I've done 4 deals with that person. We've probably made $2.5 million across all those deals.
Yeah.
And doing deals with people like yourself, doing deals with, a bunch of other people. Yeah. Later, as I had access to more capital, more resources, the business really became about, let's network with great operators. If great operators want to learn about distressed real estate at the time, then I'm going to learn how to do distressed real estate so that I can teach people and I can create more community around it. If I want to do subdivides, if I want to do development, I want to learn that topic really well. And then I want to teach it to high-level operators who can work with me so we can do more deals together.
And that's why because I get pitched deals from strangers all the time. And even if from a quick glance, I don't think it's a great deal, I always spend at least 15 to 30 minutes with them, either on the phone or a Zoom call or Google Meets or whatever, because I know there's a 1% chance that they're going to be the type of person that I want to work with. And eventually we'll do a home run together. It might not be for 5 or 10 years, but I want to get a call someday. I want to get a call in 20 years from somebody who wants to build a skyscraper with me, right? And they've locked up the deal and somehow they think I add value on some part of the vertical spectrum. That's really my mindset, is like long-term. I want to build this cohort of high performers where we transact together for multiple decades.
I love that.
Okay, so you're doing deals. Do you want to talk about messy title stuff, or that's your newest project, right?
Yeah, your show. Let me know what you want to know.
So real quick, the messy title stuff, that's basically where you have, tell me if you think this is going to go away with blockchain, but you have a piece of land worth $1 million and there's 20 different heirs because somebody died in the 90s. They didn't have their correct will in place. And so now technically all the cousins and nieces and nephews own it. And the strategy there is to buy their interest for super cheap, $500, $5,000. And then you piece together enough ownership to where you own enough percentage to where you can either sell it with the existing heirs who are holding out, or you can force a sale and the court kind of forces the other heirs to sell with you. To me, it seems, tell me if my made up numbers sound correct. Your cost basis in these kind of deals is like 10%, right? But there's only like a 50% chance that these deals go through. And so once you work out all the numbers, it makes sense. But where I kind of struggled for myself to dive into it is it seems like a ton of just labor and mental bandwidth. I'm guessing that doesn't affect you as much with the right team in place. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so that's a good social media fairy tale, like how those deals go.
Okay.
But in reality, that's like the needle in the haystack. That's like somebody refers me a deal and I make $1 million off it. That happened a couple times, but that's not the norm, I would say, by any means. I'd say with distressed real estate and really what we're targeting, it's a bit of a function for me of the stuff that the deals I've passed on / the deals I've had to fix title on. Because when I learned how to do land, the outfit I learned it from was like, you don't need a title company. You just make sure the deed is in the person's name you're buying it from, and you're all good. And I took that advice, and I've run into a bunch of later after I bought that deed for $1,000, and I try and go sell it later, find out there's an issue. And for 4 or 5 years, I would have every quarter a problem or two that we had to solve. Mm-hmm. And often those deals are where I made the most money or where I would make on the upper end of profits at the time for a deal. And so I've always had this idea in the back of my head of I would love to be able to just find those deals because they're very motivated, pretty easy to transact with the owners, and there's value. There's things we're actually doing to add value to the deal. And I personally, my dad's worked in institutional trading for his whole career, and I'm generally aware of the economy, I feel like. And a couple of years ago, I really saw my traditional land business margins compress. Running the big team didn't make as much sense anymore. Spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month in marketing didn't make as much sense anymore. And this was maybe a long shot or maybe a pivot. There's different things you could call, but I just have felt over the past few years that we're headed towards, call it a down market. We're talking in September of 2025, so we'll see. It hasn't come yet, but I thought to myself, if we can learn how to buy assets in foreclosure, assets with heavy distress, then we're going to do very well in a down market. Because what doesn't do well in a down market is land. Land is typically one of the first assets to lose a lot of value, lose a lot of pricing demand, and turn from a seller's market to a buyer's market, which I think most people that are in the industry would say that's what's happened over the last couple of years. And so I set off on this side quest to figure out, hey, what can we do when people aren't buying land? Because that is going to eventually come. And that's what got me into distressed real estate. So did some coaching, bought all the programs I could find out there. So to answer your question, fractured airship deals are great. I've done a couple large one of those, but the average deal like that really looks more like there's 50 to 100,000 bucks to be made, or maybe a little bit more depending on how you target it. But in the distressed real estate realm, I'd say the most important thing really is your targeting and your data. It's because all of these things, whether it's fractured airship, fractured ownership, it's tax distress, it's mortgage distress, it's broken chains of title, messy chains of title. One thing we've found a lot of is co-owner disputes. It's like a combination of a fractured airship and a messy title deal. And then often there's like taxes or something involved as well. Brother and sister, that's not a very hard like chain of title to reconstruct or airship to reconstruct. But oftentimes brother and sister, if they are estranged and went different directions in their life, they might have 50-50 interest in a property and they hate dealing with each other so much that they can't come to an outcome. Or take somebody getting divorced, for example. We bought a property one time, 50% interest, where on first call, we talked to the husband, then we talked to the wife, and the wife said, no way in heck. She didn't say that. She said it a little more explicitly, that I'm going to do a deal with my husband. So we went and we bought the husband's deed, and we called her back and we said, okay, your husband is no longer in the picture. We can either go to court and solve this, or we can figure it out now. And we did a deal on the phone. She was less concerned with getting the deal done. She was more concerned with anything that had to do with the co-owner. And we found tons of different examples of this with landlord tenants, with people who, like one we did recently is like this woman inherited some land and the boundaries were a little confusing, and she had various friends and family that were in and out of these trailers on the land. And so technically we had somebody who wanted to move, but the title was messed up. There was tenants in these trailers. And so we had to buy her deed, reconstruct the actual boundaries of the property, work out deals with everybody else living on the property. Once that was done, then we got to subdivide and take the property to market. So really we're looking for indicators, and we're looking for signs of distress. And there is a lot of outbound work, and we've turned that on its head a bit. I think if you really understand data and a bit of computer science and how to work with large sets of data, you can turn it a bit more into what land investors or wholesalers or flippers are used to, is where you send out marketing, you have deals coming in. But it's really about looking for things on the chain of title, things in the court dockets, things in real public records that suggest somebody might be having an issue. And we have really been focusing on deals right now where we can make about $75K on the low end, and obviously unlimited on the high end. And we're searching for those issues. So there's a lot of different turns it takes, and got a ton of stories and a ton of deals going on right now. It's definitely a different vertical of business, like you said. And like, for example, the deal you and I are doing together, there's not like that deal doesn't need a business. It doesn't need a team. It needs somebody to run the day-to-day, which still is not that much. And then it needs funding. It needs a little bit of professionalism around the edges. The distressed real estate title stuff, that needs a team. Like I now employ a couple old escrow officers who did not want to go back to the office. We employ some good outbound salespeople. We employ some good administrative data people. We employ a couple like computer science data engineers as well. And then my partner, of course, who runs that side of the business. But yeah, it's a different operation. It does remind me a bit more of like traditional land flipping, just with different types of deals.
Do you think, so you started with flipping iPhones, then flipping cheap, buy for 1,000, sell for 4,000 or 5,000 desert lots. Then you went to bigger flips, buy for 25, sell for 50. Then you went into minor subdivides. I know you've dabbled with major subdivisions. Now you're doing messy title. Do you think, I don't like to think that you've graduated to higher levels because I think that's a misnomer, but do you think you transitioning to more and more complex business models within the land space, is that more of a function of you chasing bigger and better profits, or is it more of a function of you getting bored and your mind needs to always be learning new things?
My answer to that would depend on when you asked me. A couple years ago, whenever I ramped up the distressed acquisitions, what we called them, inside the business, when we ramped up that side, it was a bit out of necessity. Like, I did not like the subdivide market at that point. A lot of people came in. There was this sun run from like 2021 to 2023 where a lot of owners were still like conceptually willing to sell at 2019 prices just because they weren't. It was like COVID and all the stuff was happening, and there was an arbitrage on people's perceived value and how we could force appreciation with minor subdivides. And if people like to attribute like coaching and the courses and the education on it, but dude, I meet random people at my country club who tell me that they subdivide land. So it's like, this is just this isn't the first rodeo for this kind of business. For that business, which is where I was making most of my real estate money at the time, I saw a short term, at least, end to the run. And I wanted something that I felt could weather a longer storm. And I didn't feel like it was traditional land flipping, and I didn't feel like it was subdividing at the time. So I had to find something else. And my thought process is foreclosures and distress is only going to go up if the market trends downwards. And so it's probably a good bet to make. Now, if you asked me that question a couple years ago, the honest answer would be I would get bored doing stuff. Yeah, I would need something new to do. I'd need a new side project. I'd want to run a new course or new program. But nowadays, when I really look back, like one of my, I don't like to say regrets, but if I were to have a regret, one of mine would be that in 2017, when we were in this golden age of the smaller land deals, I wish I'd done 10 times more of them. I wish I'd really double, triple, quadruple down on that strategy. I wasn't really mature enough as a business owner, entrepreneur yet to do it, but wish I had, because that model was just really printing money at the time. And I have the same feeling about subdivides. Like I did about a dozen or so great deals between 2021 and 23. And I didn't realize that was, for me at least, in my risk tolerance, where that party was going to end, right? Unfortunately, when I put $1 out, I want to get $2 back. That's just what I want, right? And it doesn't always work that way. But if I don't see a deal that gives me that kind of return, I really just am not that interested in doing it. I'd rather just keep looking for other deals and keep my money in a money market account or doing something else. So now that we've transitioned and we're doing a lot of distressed real estate, I see again, I'm hoping this is the time I can really take advantage of it, but I see again what I saw in 2017 and what I saw in 2020, 2021, which is like a lot of runway. And this business has a lot more unique moats. It needs creative capital. It needs a lot of data. It needs a little bit of computer science, which I have a minor. I've done a lot of programming stuff over the years, so I get that side of things. And I don't see an end in sight. The more we work and the more marketing we put out, the more deals we bring in that continue to hit my return metrics, what I want to make. And so, yeah, I'd say back in the day as I was growing and really learning, how to be a successful self-employed entrepreneur, that I would get bored and I would sometimes see a dip in my cash flow and my revenue and cash on hand, and I'd want to go out and do something, whether it's through coaching or through another type of deal, to try and make more income. But now that I'm a little more stable, I would say, and I do have massive inflows and outflows for me of cash these days, but have a solid reserve fund that's not going to run empty anytime soon. I have more freedom to. And yeah, back then I would say, whether you call it it could be a strength, could be a weakness, depending on how you look at it. But I was often looking for something that wouldn't make me as bored, because I'd get bored doing the same thing over and over. But nowadays I'm really interested in taking a business to the next level. And so I am looking and I am trying to focus. Like, we have all sorts of ideas all the time, my partner and I, about different things we want to do. Should we run a course? Should we run a thing? Should we run a that? And we always come back to each other and we say, is this our one thing that we're focusing on? No, let's keep focusing on our one thing, which is distressed on that side of the business.
Is he a silent partner? I don't think I've met him.
Jeremy? You've met Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy. Yeah, Jeremy's great.
Yeah, Jeremy used to do a lot of stuff with me, all of the above: real estate, coaching, side projects, side quests, software. But we've really found where his superpowers are, and it's in the distress side of the business. And so really tried to put him in a seat that really, really works for him, gives him the most earning potential. I really couldn't run that side of the business without him, and he acknowledges he couldn't do that business without me, because sometimes you're taking big capital swings, which to me is normal. I'll send 20 and 30. He just sent me a message this morning. We sent $35,000 out on Friday to stop a mortgage foreclosure. He said, hey, and this is the bad side of it, it's like, hey, that deal we thought that we had $200,000 of profit on, we found there's a $100,000 IRS lien. So that deal just got cut in half. If he was doing that deal alone, he wouldn't do that deal. But for me, I saw the opportunity. We had a bunch of downside protection, and to me, it's worth, let's do the deal. And if we break even, lose a little money, that's fine. It's made up by all the deals that we make money on. And so
you guys are a good balance. Yeah. You and him. Like, you're the visionary, high risk taker, you're the marketing guy, and then he's the what is he, a corporate attorney, or what are those big lawsuits called?
Class action.
He's the class action attorney, he's the systems guy, more the integrator. Mm-hmm. So I think, are you guys partnered on everything, or are you doing side deals and he's doing side deals?
So he focuses all his time now on the distress side of the business, and we're partners. We're 50-50 across the board on that business, and he helps out on other stuff we do. So he ran from an implementation teaching standpoint, he taught our last cohort we did in March of distressed, and so we do side deals on that. But we're like, I very much like you. If you treat people fairly, they stay with you and want to keep working with you. But he's solely in that side of the business now, and it's been a really good fit for us.
Yeah, he's great. I did write down some questions when you were talking, and I wanted to know, okay, how much of your time do you think is spent in flow state versus manager type tasks? Because what I've been wrestling with, so I've had a task on my plate for like weeks now that I've been procrastinating on, which is to do market research for a partnership I'm in. And it's not that I don't want to do the actual market research. I realize that my resistance to doing the task is that I haven't been in a flow state kind of role, like a deep work kind of role, for years, really for 4 years now. I've been in a manager type role where you can dip in and out of meetings, send texts, send emails, do quick calls, and all day long you can dip in and out, and it works really well. Flow state, you need like 2 to 4 hours at a minimum to really do that kind of stuff. Are you working on flow state kind of tasks? And if so, how do you get into that? I know going to a physical office really helps, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. There's two sides of that. Over the past year and a half, lines up when I told you I got pretty burnt out from doing the coaching. And at that time, I was in some bigger deals, so I really didn't have a lot of pressure to add more deals to my pipeline. I was like, we had a few deals that were going to take about a year to do. And so my pipeline was full, my bank account was full, I was burnt out. And so to answer your question, I think there's a bit of grace you need to give yourself at some point to understand if you are doing managerial type tasks for years and years and years, and you're not in flow state, there's questions to say, what are some tactics or implementation to get back in? But for me, like the way I got back into doing flow state type work where I come to the office, and I'll give you a couple of tips I do, but the only way I actually got back to doing that is wanting to do it again. Period. Like the year of 2024, I played a lot of golf, like an incredible amount of golf, more golf than I've ever played. It was amazing. It's fantastic. My body, I don't know if it needs to play golf 4 days a week, but I was playing a ton of golf. I was doing a lot of stuff I wanted to do. My first child was born. I was taking most of my time off to rotate between playing golf or doing something with, I also recently moved back to where I'm from, so I got family and friends around. So I really was in between that. I was in between slight managerial work, 5 or 10 hours a week, and then raising my new child. And at first that was hard for me. But over time, probably over the last 6 months, I've really just leaned in and enjoyed it. Like I really enjoyed, let me put it this way. One thing I always wanted to do is whenever I had my first child, I wanted to not be a slave to an office. I didn't want to have to go to a W-2. That was the reason I left working for somebody else. And when the time came, it was impossible for me to get in that mindset. It took a lot of work and time off, frankly, to like transition into that.
Into what mindset?
To being at home, to being with my family, to work wasn't first. I wasn't trying to make money every single day, right? I was trying, frankly, over that time period, abstracting the last 6 months, the year before that, I pretty much did not work. Like my existing businesses and the people managing them continued to run them. We didn't do any coaching pretty much, and we were just doing real estate deals quietly. Didn't make the most money I'd ever made, but I also, looking back, got to do what I wanted to do. I got to stay home and learn how to be a dad. I got to spend a ton of time with my child who went from 0 to 18 months, which is crazy now. So it was, to me, looking back, it was a signal that I did need a break. Like I needed a break from, because like when you're going into flow state every day, you're building. And when you're building, you need focus. You need that 4, 6, 8 hours a day where you can pour into the business. And for me, my life wasn't lining up at the time where my brain could get into to the mode where it even wanted to go into flow state. I was just too overwhelmed. I was too, all sorts of words you can put around it. I needed a break, right?
So how did you handle that with, you're an Enneagram 3, right? The achiever. How did you, when I'm not working very much, my brain tells me I'm a loser because I'm not working. Did you have that? Do you struggle with that?
Yeah, that was very hard.
How did you get past that?
Like I said, I was doing other things. And again, I don't golf is not the end all be all, but golf is a very great, it parallels to like life and business very well. It's something that is impossible to conquer. You're never going to be perfect at it. I just got very obsessed with my golf friends and my golf group and all the stuff we did. And so I had to find something to fill that time. For one, you can't just stop. Our purpose is to work. It's to build, to do things in life. Yeah, just sitting around doing nothing is not going to fulfill. It's probably not going to fill those needs. So I had to find something to replace it. But once I figured out that between my fitness and playing golf and taking care of my family, that was 10 hours a day. It was hard for me to say that's an appropriate use of 10 hours a day. But once I got there, I was like, that was the routine. That's what I was doing. My flow state was when I would leave the house, I'd go to the gym, I'd meet somebody for lunch, I'd play golf, I'd shower, I'd come home, I'd take care of the kid. That was the day. That was the flow state. It took focus and all the things I was doing. It just wasn't making money.
So it sounds like 2024, and I feel like I just hit this, where I finally stopped feeling the pressure to make more and more money every year. Because during COVID, my income doubled every year for three years in a row. And it's this crazy hamster wheel you find yourself on where if you don't continue that pattern, then there's something wrong. How have you broken that pattern?
Got excited. I got excited about the work I was doing again. And you can't force that, right? Like a lot of the stuff we were doing in distressed real estate, there's a lot of implementation work. And so that wasn't the exciting part to me, right? But I was dipping my toe back into building something new. And I'm trying to think how to put this into eloquent words, if you will, but I defined a project that excited me. When I sat down and I said, hey, Jeremy runs 90% of that business. You are the CFO. Jeremy runs 90% of that business. My roles in that business are CFO, to make sure all the CFO things, but frankly, to make sure the money's there, make sure there's money to do deals and support the team and support all the needs and to reconcile our accounts and just all the CFO things. That and helping him do deals, helping him come up with new ideas, come up with different ways to tackle things. Those were the two things, and I really wasn't needed outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, over the past 6 months, I've really felt the desire to want to build, to want to do something again. Not necessarily for the money, although the money is always a byproduct, but I just have felt the urge. I've had the desire to build, to work on something. And reflecting on it, I think it was a byproduct of taking some time off and focusing on some stuff that I really wanted to do. And within our distressed real estate business, we've been building this software tool over the last couple of years. And that's what I do now is I do CFO, CEO stuff, and then I'm working on building our tool. And it's not it's slightly revenue generating, but it's nowhere near any of the other initiatives we have. But I'm excited. It's fun. It's got me back in the groove. It's got me setting priority lists and knocking things out and moving the ball forward again. And so byproduct of I got there by taking a break, maybe.
Yeah. Like a 6-9 month break. I'm asking the same questions from different angles. I'm just kind of like poking the bush with a stick from different sides of the bush. So when I started this podcast, Rooster Capital was the second business model that I had scaled. I got it running. It was performing well. It was a well-oiled machine. And both times I get bored, right? I like starting stuff. I don't like running stuff. And so then I started the podcast to basically ask others if they're having the same challenges I am. But then a few months ago, I started TRT. I basically fixed my 20 years of low testosterone. And now in hindsight, I'm realizing that a lot of my boredom or funk was just from like hormones that have been off balance. So I'm feeling less boredom. Things seem much more interesting now. But for you, this kind of leads in. So 2 years ago, you were at Sumner's conference. You got up on stage and you showed the audience, hey, you weren't bragging at all, but your point was, hey, I'm like in my 20s and I took my net worth from 0 to 6 million in 5 years. Here's what I'm doing in the future. Here's how I did it. Now, that was 2 years ago. I'm assuming your net worth is much higher now. How do you could potentially retire, not work indefinitely, even in Dallas where you're at. Like, how do you reconcile that in your brain? Because you could just spend more time with your daughter. You could play more golf. You could start building furniture in your garage, right? You could pick up hobbies that are interesting. How do you reconcile in your brain? Because there is stress with what you're working on right now, right? I'm sure there's some weekends where it's a Friday afternoon and you need 250K by Monday. How do you justify do you ever feel like you're just on a better hamster wheel?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wrestle with this a lot. So the first thing is taxes suck. All right, I've paid a lot in taxes over the last couple of years. My net worth has not grown as much as I'd like it to. I had some deferred tax liability in there, but yeah, if you look at if I took what I had right now and I reallocated everything, I mean, we got to turn all these deals first and get all the cash back. But let's say I did that, got all my cash back, paid all my taxes, got liquid. Sure, I could probably throw it into a money market account and live off the interest. It wouldn't be the full lifestyle that I enjoy, but yeah, we could retire. Probably in the top 1%. We'd have a good life. But I can't and this isn't anything to my wife or child or family, but I have learned about myself. And this is just a simple way to put it, I have to leave the house every day. I have to. I've been home for 4 days straight because family's been sick. And then right as the baby got better, my wife went down and she was down all weekend with fever and stuff. And so I've been home grinding for the last 4 days. And it reminds me just as much as ever that I need to leave. Like my sweet spot is like 4 to 6 hours a day. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sit back and think about that, I'm like, dude, that's like the ideal life I think anybody could want.
Right.
You get to wake up, spend time with your kids, spend time with your wife. We wake up, we play every morning, we go on walks, we have breakfast, we do all sorts of fun stuff. And then baby and mom go off and go do naps and middle of the day stuff, and I leave. Sometimes I go play golf. Sometimes I go to work. Sometimes I go do a number of other things. But if I stay home, like I just get stir crazy. I go nuts. I drive my wife crazy. And it's been the same pattern for me for decades, really for 20 years. I've always really needed to go out and burn my energy off at some point, doing something throughout the day. And it's taken me a long time to really internalize that is who you are. That's what you got to do. It doesn't have to be work every day, but I really do need something 5-6 days a week where I can go focus and spend time building, playing, doing something that challenges my inner creativity, that is something I enjoy doing, friendship, fellowship, all the stuff. So that's one big thing is just I got to leave throughout the day, right? I got to go do something. And the office was one step in that direction, especially after we had our daughter. It's just, I thought the house was big enough and it's just not, I just can't work at home. It just pulls me away too much. And so for me, it's just like, I just feel like we're all built to do things, to accomplish things, to build things. And some periods of life, you're building different things than other. But for me, it's been, that's just my behavioral pattern that I have to follow is I have to go out. I have to do, I have to build. And if I'm in a season where I want to build in the business world, that's great. And if I'm not, luckily at this point, I'm at a position where I don't have to. But for me, and the other side of your question is I do have targets, right? I thought it was $1 million at first, wasn't $1 million. I thought it was $5 million. It's not $5 million. Now I think it's 10 or 15 million.
For annual income or net worth?
Net worth, where I can just say, okay, no more business building.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've said that every time and then I hit it and then I don't feel like I want to stop. I don't know. I really don't know when the end will be, but I just do know that you kind of got to foster that creativity and understand your energy because you're in different states in different parts of your life and different seasons. And when I am in a season where I want to build and I want to do things, now I really want to take advantage of that. And so I'd say that's where I am right now. Sure, I don't have to work, but I really do enjoy it. And I also, I don't know. I don't.
Do you think we're just chasing, are we just chasing dopamine hits in a more productive way than most people?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I have found, for better or worse, if I just go like the smallest milligram of nicotine pouches they have, the 3 milligrams.
Yeah.
If I'm starting to feel aimless or not able to do something in the day and I pop one of those in, it's not like I get a massive nicotine, but I get a dopamine uptick that like clears my brain enough to where I get stuck not being able to make decisions. And so I have learned that about myself over the past few years. It's like really have to focus on like my energy, my dopamine uptake is how I think about it sometimes to make sure that I don't get in a funk.
So you're saying that, because I've gone on and off the nicotine pouches multiple times. And once I hit my maintenance dose, I'm like, what's the point? And then I cut it. And then I go a few weeks without it. And then I'm like, life is boring right now. So then I started again. Are you saying that the pouches get you out of a funk? Or you're saying they cause a funk?
No, they get me out. Like my body needs stimulants. Like it needs something to stimulate it. So like when I'm going to play golf with people that are a lot better than me at golf, I'm thinking all morning like, oh, I hope I don't look like an idiot today.
Yeah.
I'm stimulated. I'm warming up. I'm practicing. I'm getting ready to go. If I wake up and I don't have anything to do that day, by about 8:30 or 9, I feel lost. It's hard to really explain, but I get in a funk. And even if it's maybe I could go to lunch with a friend, or I could go see my dad who lives 10 minutes from me, or I could go work on something, or I could go to the gym. Like I just can't make a decision between any of those. I get this fog over me. And I have learned specifically about me that I have different times of the day, every day, when that happens. And so I've had to like build my life and my schedule around that a little bit. Like I think like I've been prescribed Adderall and things over the years. I don't really like using it. I just come down off harder than I think other people do, and I just recover as well. So I've kind of had to find other ways to simulate the dopamine hit. And so whether it is having something planned in the middle of the day, going to the office, or tossing us in the upper lip to figure out what the next step of the day is. Oftentimes when I get in that funk, I find that it's because I don't have something stimulating.
Enough stimulation.
Yeah, exactly.
I've wrestled with the same patterns, and I found with any vice, I can cut it very easily, but then that lack of stimulation drives me nuts. Do you think in a perfect world, in a vacuum, with no vices, I would include caffeine, social media, everything in there. In that perfect world, would you be forced to fill it through chasing bigger deals and golfing? Or like healthy outlets?
I always think, like, when I think about that, I think back to being a kid. And I think the patterns were always similar back then too. I just didn't have social media, nicotine.
You had bike ramps and bricks and
exactly,
and like rocks to throw at squirrels.
Yeah, we'd get on the bike and we'd bike 5 miles away to the convenience store and do something, right? Like,
yeah.
So there's always been that need to pick up, if you will. Obviously we all want to, or at least I am still motivated to make money. I still want to go out and earn and hit those $10-15 million numbers that I have in my mind. But these days for me, like, I've, for the first time in my life, recently found a good routine. I found a way that I think
good balance.
Yeah, good balance where, and look, I think about this sometimes, it's great, but what about somebody who doesn't have the financial security to take the week off and play golf or go on a trip or do something, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm thankful for where I am, and I do know that whatever season or phase of life I was in, I do have to maintain that part of me, that need for uptake, that need to balance my hormones and figure out how to be a productive member of society. Because if I don't, I've historically gone into periods where it's not been as good either.
Have you ever felt like, because I feel like this sometimes, where the high need for stimulation has caused a lot of success and the obsession, right? That's why entrepreneurs do so well. They obsess over things. They need stimulation. They need like higher levels of dopamine. Do you ever feel like that's a curse?
No.
You're just like the fanciest guy on the fastest treadmill, just sprinting, and everyone else is enjoying their life?
I used to feel that way, but looking back, and I'm sure you have, maybe you don't, but friends or people in your life that aren't where you are financially or successfully, I wouldn't have taken the first 1 or 2 or 3 big steps to get there without that level of obsession, right? I was talking to my wife the other day. I was like, do you remember back in Austin, which is a phrase she knows at the time, when I was just working till like midnight every night?
Yeah.
I was like working on both Learn Land and the real estate business, just burning it at both ends. I was obsessed with it at the time. I'd never really believed I could do work and people would write me $50,000 checks for doing it. I just never really, that was like half my salary or more than half my salary back then. So I was very obsessed with it. I wanted to do it all the time, and that fades obviously. But yeah, I don't think I'd be where I am if I didn't have the obsessive personality that I do. So I don't think it's a curse. I think it's challenging to live with, but
yeah,
not a curse.
How has your daughter, so Ellery was born, winter, spring of 2024?
Yeah, April.
How has a child changed things for you?
That's a great question. I think it's hard to answer so far, and I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but my friend told it to me, and upon reflecting, I really feel like I agree with it. And keep in mind, it's a joke. Okay, it's a joke. But he said with his first child, who was his daughter, he said, I didn't like Lizzie until she was 18 months old.
Yeah.
He would tell me this as I'm preparing to be a father for the first time. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. And then for the first 8-10 months, they just do nothing. They do nothing other than just require need. And there's some cute, cuddly moments and things along the way, of course, but there's no input from them. Over the past 3 or 4 months, 6 months really, she started like walking and running and babbling and like trying to communicate, and there's a person in there, right?
Yeah.
And so I really feel like I am now, like I think my body over the last, because I don't know all the research and stuff, but I know your body changes a lot when you have kids, like your hormones change. Mm-hmm. My friend put it very simply to me. He's like, yeah, your body changes so you don't murder the kid. Because it's true. It's like the biological progression. And
your testosterone lowers so that you don't look for another mate.
Dude, a good friend, you probably know him, Logan Swanson. He told me like 2 months into having a child, he's like, you need to lift heavy weights with your legs 3 times a week. He said, will offset the drop in testosterone and rise in estrogen that men have. That was a good tip. So I actually have been doing that, and lots of walking, lots of leg lifts and moving throughout the week has helped a lot. But anyhow, I'm really just now getting to the point where I'm getting to know her and meet her and have fun with her, which has been a really interesting phase of life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, all the cliches, like I never really like cliches, but I think parenthood has all the cliches are pretty much true, right? You have a child, you start thinking about everything in terms of like, how's the child going to experience it? What is the money for if it's not going to go there, if it's not going to benefit that relationship? So you really start thinking about everything. We did all our wills and like end of a life stuff. Like I don't think that's going to come anytime soon, but you start thinking about that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It's maybe a little more introspective and asking the tough questions of, okay, why do you want to build that company? Is it worth doing that versus being at home with the family? Can you do both side by side? It's just another, frankly, probably the most important variable now when you're making decisions. And so have to put that into the stream of consciousness when you're thinking through things.
Do you believe in generational wealth? And do you feel pressure? Yeah. Do you feel pressure to pass down an inheritance?
I don't know about that yet. I don't know. I really don't. I think the natural thought is like, yeah, I want to leave stuff to my kids, right? But then I see my parents and my grandparents, and some of them are in later stages of life, and some of them have amassed a lot of wealth, medium amounts of wealth, some have not. And I don't know that it really is a huge deal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I don't think it's why people love each other and spend time together and do all that kind of stuff. So I want to provide my friend just sent his child to the best private school in our area, $30,000 a year, which is crazy for 3rd grade. But if I were to spend $30,000 a year on something, it'd probably be putting my kid in the best school. So I do want to give her those kinds of things. And I do believe that on the path I'm on, really, I think these days, like if you can amass 10, 15, $20 million, that's generational. Like you can live off the dividends, and if you manage that portfolio, it should grow forever, right? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I would be where I am if my family left me $5 million out of college. And I like all the challenges and things I've had to go through. Yeah, I'd like to leave things to my kids, but I don't know if I'd want to drop $20 million on them the day I died, you know?
Do you think the entrepreneurial gene is something that your kids inherit, or is it something that you can develop, or a little bit of both? Because I heard a stat once, I don't remember where I heard this, maybe it's not even real, but there's like roughly a 1 in 3 chance that your kid will have that drive to build their own wealth. Chances are that the kid that inherits that wealth, they don't really, I'm not saying they would steward it poorly, but they're definitely not going to grow that. Very best case, they maintain it. Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, God willing, my wife and I don't die by the time our child is in their 20s or 30s. Could, very well, that happens. But I would like to think that raising your children properly, teaching them, the only way my child would ever have that is if we both died, right? And hopefully it doesn't happen, could happen, but I'm going to be dead at that point, you know? So I don't want to think about too much about the ramifications of it, but I do know that I do want to teach my kids about money. I want to teach them how to make money. And when I'm not going to just give them hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to go start their life, right? I don't know. It's a good question. I hope I don't have to deal with it anytime soon. But yeah, it's one to definitely think about. I don't have the answer for it. I do think to your point though, I think the ADHD, the need for dopamine uptake, all that kind of stuff is genetic. And I think it can lead to good and bad outcomes depending on your environment, how you're being raised, the things you're being taught. And yeah, I think they've studied this. Like a lot of the successful people have some form of ADD, ADHD, some sort of like lack of dopamine that needs more uptake. So I think it's challenging to live with at times, but I think it often produces the higher performers. So I can tell she has it, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my daughters, she's already thinking like an entrepreneur. We were
I was frying almonds on the stove with brown sugar and butter. And she was like, we could sell these to grocery stores. And I'm like, yeah, at least got one. My goal is just raise really good kids and they become really quality humans. And if there's money left over, that's great. But if not, that's fine too. Because on two sides of the family, my mom's side, my dad's side, one side has zero money. The other side, there was a large 7-figure inheritance passed down. And I have 3 of the 4 grandparents have passed away. So I've gotten to see what end of life looks like for them. Both sides, there's a ton of love. There's kids at the bedside during the death period. Like, it's really, the kids are the ones that stick near you because there's a 50% chance your spouse dies before you, right? And on both sides, the money doesn't seem to matter. I know it takes away stress. Like, one side does have more anxiety than the other, right? Just because, like, money is not in abundance. But yeah, I think about that a lot, right? Because you and I, at this very moment, we're not spending time with our kids, right? We're technically working. My kids are in school, so maybe that doesn't count. But like, you could go home and be with your daughter at this exact moment. And I always think about like where that balance is. And I don't think there's a right answer. One thing I have found, and you probably won't hit this for a few years because you said she's 18 months old. So I think I hit a point past few months, and I've talked about this in other podcasts, where I realized that my kids care less about the calendar time I spend with them, and they care much more about the amount of focus and attention I have when I'm with them, right? So now I try to be off my phone. Like, we don't have a TV in the house, so our kids typically read books or play with toys for fun. And when I'm in the house, I'm like bored. There's nothing to do. And it's taken me years to figure that out. But that's why I like this podcast, because we're all just winging life and we don't really know what we're doing, but we're doing it together. We have hit almost 90 minutes. Any parting thoughts or any plugs you want to make? Any events you're hosting that you want to invite people to? Any way people can get a hold of you if they want to find more about any of the products you offer?
You ready for this, Drew? No. I have no events. I have no events on my schedule right now. I have no coaching products to sell. We are building out our software tool. We'll probably be doing something with that towards the end of this year, early next year. But no, I don't, Drew. I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be your friend. I'm happy to know you. Happy for anyone listening to this. Hope it helps them. I too am trying to be less on my phone with, like, when I'm at home. Still struggling with it. Not there yet. But these are things that aren't, like, all the things that you learn and you think about, you're like, oh yeah, that'll be easy to do. And then it takes a year to like really build the habit, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I've learned. Like, for me, like, one of the hardest things for me with becoming a parent is the eating schedule. It's brutal. Mm-hmm. Like, I used to eat like a little late morning snack, and then we'd have dinner between 7 and 9 at some point, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a disaster if we try and do that now, because the child is not asleep till 8:30, and then you need a little wind down time, and then you're trying to have dinner at 9 o'clock. It's horrible. And then your body, you don't sleep as well. So like, it's taken me like a year to really change my like day, my like metabolism, to where I can eat dinner at 5:30, which is insane. we have dinner at 5:30 with our daughter. It's how it is. And there's all these little changes you make when you become a parent, and when you start really in any stage of your life. If you're going from step 1 to 2 in entrepreneurship, which is like not owning anything, to having 100K, is kind of like my first stair step. There's a lot of patterns and behaviors you need to change about yourself that you hear on a podcast, you think about, and you expect to change in a day or 2 days or 3 days. Yeah. I'm learning it takes a year. It takes a year to change a good habit, or 6 months or whatever it is. Like, you can change physically the habit, but like your mindset about actually wanting to do it at that time, and your body being like metabolically ready to accept doing those things at that time, takes a long time. And so in this period of life right now, where I'm just trying to have grace and understand the things that we're working on and moving towards, and not trying to put undue deadlines, and trying to lower stress a little bit, and it's been good. It's been good unpacking some of the stuff with you. And yeah, I listen to podcasts and I read books, and I know what the right things to do are. I feel like we all inherently know what the right things to do are, but it just takes time to get there.
It took me years. There was like a season of 4 or 5 years. So what's a big life event? Job change, new kid, new move, like anything that disrupts your schedule. There was a period of 4 or 5 years where
in the entrepreneur world, going from working from somebody else to working for yourself is one
Yeah.
that is a big change. People don't really take it for granted, I think, at some points, but you really have to change your behaviors, your patterns, your ability to focus and work. There's a lot of those changes.
Yeah, and I was hitting a big life change like once a quarter for 4 years straight. And I was going nuts because then you do the book Miracle Morning, Atomic Habits, and all these books where they teach you how to have the perfect routine. And then you finally get it down, but then something changes, right? Mm-hmm. Or some kid stops sleeping well or something. And then you have to choose, okay, do I get 7 hours of sleep and miss my morning routine? Or do I get 4 hours of sleep and still hit that morning routine? And then you're like, will I drop the ball on something if I only sleep 4 hours? And this constant battle in your mind. And finally, I feel like I've hit the point where I've stopped striving towards perfection and I've started striving towards consistency, right? So now the win is if I can just run 1 mile every day and just do 3 to 5 sets at a working weight for lifting weights, like that's it. And if I can, usually I do much more than that, but if I can get those 2 things in plus a few other habits, it's a win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that, especially reflecting on my life, people just don't give themselves enough grace in transition times. Like you just beat yourself up, and I'm guessing a lot of your audience or some of your audience at least, is growing their wealth, growing their business, things to that effect. Man, when you start sitting down, like again, I've sat down with some of my family members who are in the later stages of their life, and I guess I'm the financial guy in the family somehow. And everybody wants to show me their like portfolio and like what they're leaving life with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard for years about a couple of my family members' massive amounts of wealth. And at the moment when I'm sat down to look at it, I'm like, oh, it's not that much, It's a couple $1 million, whatever it is, which is great. But for people like us, one thing that I've really internalized, and you said something that made me think about it, is if you go from having no money at the age of 22 or very little money to having $1 million or having $5 million at the age of 28, you just compressed the average person's work
lifetime
balance of 60 years into 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. And so you will constantly have the things you were talking about where there's a change. Do I need to be in flow state? Do I not need to be? How do I do this with my kids? How do I do this with my family? So-and-so is sick. I'm trying to take care of this. Like you're compressing a lifetime. If let's just say you're growing your net worth to $2 million, that's like the top 5% of what people die with. So you're compressing, like you're taking all the business activities and the stress and the time and the energy and the thinking about, I sure hope that deal closes so I don't go bankrupt at night, right? You're like compressing a lifetime of that into 5 or 7 or 10 years, or some people 2 or 3 years, right? Like I made a lot of my money between 2020 and 2023, and there was a lot of stress, a lot of sleepless nights, and that's part of it, right? For high performers, you are seriously compressing a lifetime of work into a small number of years. It's going to present a ton of challenges that you can listen to somebody on a podcast say they've got a solution for. They don't have a solution for it. They just have something that works for them, right? I don't know. I've just thought about that a lot lately when I talk to people and see people towards their end of life who, in my eyes and in most of the world's eyes, have been very successful, have worked very hard to be on par with them in my early 30s or late 20s. You literally had to do 40 years of work in 5 years to get there. So you're going to have those scars and those experiences and things that are going to make you have to look at the world a little bit differently. And yeah, man, I think like the path that we're on, it sounds cheesy, but it's pretty hard. It's great to have money, but it's hard to get there. It's hard to stay there. That's one thing I've learned too, is like when you're not working When you're not making as much income at the time, you probably can't spend like you were when you're making money as well, right?
Yeah.
So many little things you learn along the way. And you just got to give yourself grace, man. It's a lot of life experience to fit into such a short amount of time. And if somebody's listening to this and they've gone from no net worth to $250,000 of net worth, $500,000 of net worth, that still can be 10, 15, 20 years of the average person's life building that. And you hear Drew and Clint on the podcast talking about millions of dollars, and it's like, try and maybe bring yourself down a little bit. It's like, no, dude, you're like experiencing a lot of things the average person doesn't experience. And yeah, I think grace, both from you and your Savior, understanding you have that, sitting in that. And then the biggest other thing for me would just be like really having, this would be my parting thought for you, is managing your energy, understanding when you are burnt out. When you week after week are trying to grow something, you're trying to do the initiative, you're trying to do the market research for the thing that will take you like 40 minutes with ChatGPT once you're done with it, maybe, but it takes you 3 weeks to do it. That's probably a sign that you're in some, like, that there might be a burnout phase. There might be there might be something outside of your normal flow, right? And to not fight that, to sit with that, ask yourself the question of what's going on here. Do I need a break? Do I need a vacation? Do I need to stop sending out $50,000 a month of marketing spend because it's stressing me out and I can't be with my family? I can't focus with my family. You got to open yourself up to those questions and be willing to move with your energy, because when you're growing very rapidly, everything grows and contracts, right? So when your energy grows, you put a lot of energy out, it naturally makes its way back to the median. So your energy is going to contract at times. And for me, I found a lot more happiness, a lot more focus, a lot more success when I just know that's the case and I just lean into it. And even though my body wants to go make $10 million this year, maybe it's not the right year to do it, right? Or the right 3 months to do it. Maybe you need a break. Maybe you need to take the foot off the gas for a minute. That's okay. And then there's times of life where I'm working on a project right now where I can't wait to get to work and work on it. And I can't wait till the baby goes to bed so I can put the final touches and figure out what I'm going to do the next day or the next work day. Right. Do
you ever hit really dark days? Then we can go after this because I know you got to go.
I got time.
You ever hit really dark days where, because I hit this probably once or twice a year, where I just want to go back to W-2, sit in a cubicle, like work 2 to 4 hours a day and then pretend like I'm working the rest of the day. Do you ever want that life back in your darkest moments?
I want a version of it back. I think it's like the no responsibility paradox of like when you work for somebody else, and also the time you're comparing it to, you probably had a lot less like family responsibilities, life responsibilities, things like that. So often I think we overgrandize what that is, but yeah, mine's a little different. I tell my wife about once a month, sometimes joking, but about every 3 to 6 months, it's extremely serious. Babe, I'm liquidating. I'm selling everything. I'm shutting it all down. I'm gonna put it in the market, or I'm gonna put it in whatever, and we're gonna just sail off into the sunset. Probably about every 3 months. Every month I'd say it as a joke, and about every 3 to 6 months I really sit down with her and I'm like, maybe it's time. I'm like, no, it's not time to do that. It's not time to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, when things get busy, when you get stressed, when you don't really know what that next answer is, when you're burnt out, when your energy's low, yeah, dude, all the time.
I had a friend, you know him actually. He's in his mid-20s. He's not married. He calls me on like a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. and he's in the Chick-fil-A parking lot eating Chick-fil-A, just like not doing anything. And I wanted his life for a little bit. But then you kind of walk down that and you realize you don't really want that in the long run. You just want that every once in a while.
Yeah.
So interesting. Alrighty, sir. You gave a long parting thoughts. Anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, man, I appreciate you having me. If you follow me, I haven't posted on social media in a year and a half, so I might start posting again. So just follow me. You follow me on Facebook or Instagram or X or wherever you want to follow me. And I got a couple cool things we're working on. I think the real estate cooperative will like what we're going to put out here in the next few months. So that's all I got, my friend.
Cool. All right, Clint. I was going to call you Clay because I'm seeing Clay next week. Clint, appreciate you, sir.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Until next time. Yep. All right. That's it for today.
I hope this conversation got you thinking and maybe even questioning a few things. And that's the point. This isn't about having all the answers. It's about figuring it out together. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want to keep exploring these ideas, make sure to subscribe and follow me over at theothersideofenough.com. Let's keep the conversation going and see you next time.